Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we got something new that's on the horizon, and I'm not going to lie. I've seen some other opinions about it. I've actually got a chance to, during one of my live streams that when I was streaming, I actually got a chance to look at some of the different champions that they got doing. We're going to talk about one of them today. But one of the things that I've seen a lot of people get concerned about is about like how big of a gap it is for like pay to win and you know how much is it going to cost to do stuff. And basically what we're talking about is mythical shards. So mythical champions are coming out and there's a lot to digest from it. But Ray did recently post a video, an update preview about mythical champions. So let's take a look at this. We'll do a live reaction and then we'll give our thoughts and opinions about the champions as they come out and whatnot. Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest update preview. Buckle up, this one's going to be huge.
Automatically a W, because Sword and Shield, I'm a sucker for Sword and Shield type like aesthetics with like, you know, wings and crowns and all that, like, you know, like a knight that's like a king knight or something like that. I don't know, it's just so, I'm a sucker for it, so I automatically the design is like...
After all, it's not every day that we announce a brand new champion rarity. Say hello to mythical champions. As they're the next step up from legendary, we've gone all out to make mythical champions feel truly special.
She's gonna be a problem.
So what exactly makes them so next level? In a nutshell, mythical champions are essentially two champions in one. They can change between two forms through an exciting new mechanic we're calling Metamorph. Each form will have a different set of skills, and sometimes they'll change a champion's type entirely. Let's check out how these warriors of myth look in battle.
So does that change whenever they metamorph? This is something I wasn't aware of before, but like base stats, for example, I like if you guys are looking at it right now, it looks like the attack type champion is a little bit more skilled towards being an attack type champion, right? Whereas like the HP side seems to lean a little bit more towards that HP oriented aesthetic. Defenses are kind of comparable, but like you could tell that like the HP, which may be like in line with a more support oriented style approach for like a champion's kit. I'm not exactly sure. You know, you can see some of the snaps kind of leaning that way, so that's interesting.
Allow me to introduce you to my mythical friend, Siegfried the Nephilim.
This guy is going to look so... He looks so cool.
Standard paragon of the Sacred Order, but wait, he hides a dark secret. When all of Siegfried's allies die, his metamorph skill activates, transforming him into a flaming angel of vengeance. Check it out, even his shield is angry. It's not just Siegfried's appearance that's changed.
Too cool.
All of his skills are different now, too. His first, or base form, focuses entirely on cracking skulls and dealing damage. Now that he's...
You know, his ability right there that he just showcased kind of reminds me of something that's like Final Fantasy oriented with like Squall, you know, having a gun blade, and he has like basically one of his limit breaks is just like him charging up the sword, and it's like super big and it just beams down and he just snipes somebody. That's exactly what this Siegfried ability looks like. It's super cool.
He's transformed into a second or alternate form. He's a healer who can revive his fallen friends and get them back in the fight. So there's a very quick demonstration of the metamorph mechanic, the signature feature of mythical champions. Now, let's really get into the nuts and bolts of how they work, how to make the most out of them, and how to get them. We'll start with that last and most important point, how to get a mythical champion. Presenting Primal Shards. These new, angry-looking red shards will be your main way to summon mythical champions. But you can also get rares, epics, and legendaries of all affinities, except Void, from them too.
So I heard about that too as well, and I'll be honest with you guys, I could see a lot of frustration from players. Some people are like, this should only have like legendaries and mythicals, but I feel like that would overbloat, and it would completely remove the value of like sacred shards, for lack of better words. And for that matter, it's lesser counterparts like voids and of course ancients. Less so much the voids, because you know they have their own unique champion pool. But I noticed that, and I was like, okay, well, I guess maybe that makes some sense. Maybe at the very least, in terms of like a healthy compromise, no rares. Let's just go ahead and drop the rares now, because it would suck that you work your butt off just to get a Primal Shard, and then you open it and you get a blue. You know what I mean? Like, it does not feel good, you know? So I can understand that. At the very least, give us epics, and maybe even a more specific pool of epics that are super valuable for champion or for players to really give like the value of the Primal Shards. Like, no matter what, you're getting something good, right? And I feel like that's something that I can understand some frustration from players in terms of like what they're approaching for. But before we go too much further, it looks like they're going to have pretty much the entire champion pool open except for Void. So that's going to be interesting.
At launch, there won't be any mythical Void champions, but we'll be sure to let you know when that changes and how you can add them to your collection.
Okay, when that changes.
Primal Shards can also be formed by collecting Primal Quartz. Collect 100 of this mythical substance, and you can create a Primal Shard. Both Primal Shards and Quartz can be earned from certain events or other in-game activities, so get hunting.
I'm willing to bet that's going to be kind of similar to like how they handle prisms. They may even completely do away with prisms altogether, prism crystals, and they just might keep it down to like a Primal Shard event or something like that. I don't know. Maybe not, because it looks like they kind of have like specialized summon events around these like particular prism crystal events. So maybe they keep that in play, and then they just have like Primal Shards be like a complementary event item that you can grab, or tournament like win that you can get your hands on, so that you can get enough like fragments basically to do one full Primal Shards. But if it's gonna be grindy to get a shard, I still stand on then they improve the quality of like the pool of champions you can get from it. So that's my only issue so far.
I've got a mythical champion. How do I power them up? Good news. They work exactly the same as any other champion. Fight in battles, send them to the sparring pit, use XP brews or food champions to gain experience, and use affinity potions to ascend them. Easy.
So basically
they
level
also
up the
come
same way you
fresh
normally
out
do.
of the shard at rank 6.
That's
so
nice.
No rank 5 chickens needed.
Okay.
Speaking of upgrades, time to talk skills. You'll need mythical tomes to develop their skills.
So even if you do get a champion that so happens to be a mythical right off the rip, you are going to need books. And those books will not be based off of like having legendary books. It's going to be another unique type of book system, which is basically mythical tomes. So even if you do get it, it's going to take a little while unless you can buy them, which I guess that makes this game super lopsided in terms of like if a player gets like these champions. And I'm going to assume that the way that these champions are designed, they're going to be very, very powerful, right? Especially if you can like build into them pretty effectively.
And keep in mind that you'll need to upgrade each form skills separately. But before you start picking...
That sounds like a freaking grind pool then. Like if a champion has like 4 abilities like this guy does, and then he has another 4 when he metamorphs, you have to build up 8 different stats? That's a lot of books, no?
Panicking. Fully upgrading all skills across both forms will require about the same amount of tomes as if you were upgrading a legendary champion.
Okay.
If you have a preference for one form over the other,
Got it.
Consider using your tomes to focus on that form's skills first. For example, if you want our good buddy Siegfried primarily as a healer, use your tomes on his alternate form skills first. While you'll need to think about which skills you want to upgrade first, gear and masteries will remain the same across both forms. Find the perfect balance for both, or dedicate all your resources into one form.
That guy looks too
The
cool,
choice
bro.
is yours. As for empowering, that works exactly the same, but you can't unbind mythical champions. When it comes to awakening, it's business as normal. Blessings will remain the same across both forms. The mythical champions will get extra stat bonuses from them. Since there will only be a few mythical champions at launch, you won't be able to add them to the wish list at the Altar of Souls.
Okay, so no soul stones.
That's
for
the
now.
broad strokes covered. Let's jump back to the metamorph mechanic for a closer look. We've already seen that each mythical champion will have 2 forms they can switch between. Here's the kicker. The way each mythical champion's metamorph skill works can differ. Remember Siegfried, our friendly neighborhood flaming angel? His base form's metamorph skill works like a passive and will only activate when all of his allies die. However, in his alternate form, Siegfried can activate his metamorph skill like any other active skill, turning him back into his base form at the touch of a button. In general, most mythical champions will have metamorph as a standard active skill, meaning they can change forms whenever they want. Cooldown willing, of course. Whenever a mythical champion uses their metamorph skill, they'll get an extra turn, and all of their skills will have their cooldowns reset, except for the metamorph skill. Metamorph skills also can't be affected by masteries, artifacts, or anything else that might increase or decrease cooldowns. A couple more things to keep in mind for switching forms. Unless stated otherwise, you'll keep all buffs and debuffs when changing from one form to the other. Okay. Same goes for HP.
So it's not a cleanser or anything like that when
HP
you change
percentage
over.
across both forms, even if the max HP is different. However, shield buffs won't change their value. A 10k shield buff in base form will still be a 10k shield buff in alternate form.
Got it.
And finally, as the name suggests, mythical champions will always start a battle in their base form. With mythical champions, we're adding a whole new level of utility that players can use to their advantage. While they're very versatile, you'll need to think really carefully about...
That's kind of how I interpret mythical champions in general, is that they have a lot of versatility, and that's the thing that makes them stand out. Like, one champion, or a lot of times, especially when you find yourself looking in content, like whether that's PvP or PvE for that matter, I can think of like one perfect example would be like Hydra. You got so many different champions that you need to build into, or you know, a lot of ways to like incorporate compositions to enable your team. And you're like, well, this team will run so much smoother if I had a healer in it, or if I had that extra little bit utility to provide maybe debuffs or some kind of, outlet of some capacity. And, like, I feel like mythical champions will be, like, the answer to that in a much more magnified state because of how their kits are. And I'll do a quick, like, rundown of what I remember for some of these champions. But yeah, the biggest thing is that their versatility. That's a selling point about, in my opinion, about like mythical champions in a nutshell.
Which gear, masteries, and blessings suit your playstyle and team composition. We can't wait to see how these mythical champions shake up Raid.
Yeah, it's cool.
Be sure to keep an eye on the release notes and check the news to see which events and activities will have Primal Shards or Primal Quartz as rewards. We're also planning a major new feature that will have a mythical champion as a reward. But I think you've had enough for today.
A major new feature that will have a mythical champion as a reward. A major new feature. The only thing I can think of right off the rip that is that has been like looming over us, or that's been looming around us since we've been playing the game, would probably be a new clan boss. We got that Great Void area that's still got a lock and key on it. And there's nothing that's kind of illustrating what it's going to bring to the table, let alone the rewards that come with it. So maybe that's where you get them free mythical champion. That'd be interesting.
And that's pretty much everything there is to know about mythical champions. But it wouldn't be an update preview without a champion teaser. So here's a sneak peek.
Yeah, the dwarf in his metamorph form.
Man, they look
the Sylvan
so
Watcher.
Cool. Don't forget to like the.
She is a speed lead champion that metamorphs into someone that could provide some alternative utility. She's not like on the same level like Arbiter. I believe her aura, her speed in all battles is like 25%, if I remember correctly. But she has like turn meter boosting manipulation with like increased speed, decreased speed, like those kind of mechanics in her kit in her base form. And then when she metamorphs, if I remember correctly, she has like AoE HP burn and some other utility, which is like really, really interesting.
The video and subscribe to the official Raid Shadow Legends YouTube channel to stay up to date with.
Okay. All right. So pretty much the biggest thing is that they got a lot of versatility. And this one I'm gonna break down. So like I talked about the Sylvan Watcher, the dwarf I don't remember too crazily at the moment. I do believe that like his base form is a little bit more damage oriented, and his alternative form where he turns into like basically like a golem, in a lack of better words, is very, very tanky oriented is the way I would say it. Siegfried actually has like a healer reser, basically like your support champion style build in his metamorph form, whereas like his base form is more so like damage oriented, damage utility. Now there was one particular champion I saw that they kind of loomed over for like a brief period, and it was the Foxy lady. It's a skinwalker. And I wanted to kind of talk about her for a little bit because like we one of the main things that when it comes to like new champions coming to the table, or like champions in general when they're first brought up and about, is that like they are like how impactful are they to your oh, there we go. How impactful are they to the current meta, whether that's through PvP or PvE, right? And for the most part, most of these champions are solid. I think it's going to be the best way to describe it. But like there are certain mechanics where certain champions, like for example, this Fox champion, is going to have like mechanics that are similar or conducive to something like Georgian, which is very, very meta defining. Basically a lot of the meta when it comes to like PvP, for example, you have like stone skin, bolster sets, shield sets, protection with like ally protect. Like those type of mechanics are in play to keep like your nukers alive, who are built in savage, to get their damage out, or high accuracy, high attack, so they can get bombs out. It depends on the champions you're using and whatnot, right? This champion, just like George, it basically says, I don't care about any of those mechanics, and I'm going to just one-tap. And if memory serves me correctly, it's like her A2 and her base form does something similar to that. And more, as a matter of fact. And then I think the alternate form also has another variation of that same ability, and it's actually like bonkers. If the multipliers are there and it's solid, this champion is going to be one of those ones that's in terms of the top end for like someone like Georgia, for example, right? I'm not sure if she's the only one that has like a lot of ignore mechanics, but that would make her very, very formidable. A lot of things that you would do to keep your team protected, or to get the start off right that you would like for your team, so that you can go the distance if you're playing a battle of attrition, or if you're just trying to go fast, go out of the way. These mythical champions in general are going to have something that's going to provide contention. I was looking at, for example, that Sylvan Watcher, and I was thinking about it as he was talking about it. So like, you know what? If versatility is the name of the game, how can we utilize it? And I was like, well, you obviously have your speed lead champion, which like maybe for someone like if you're in Hydra, this champion could get the ball rolling to get your team ahead of the heads, and they can do their abilities to start locking down and start applying damage. And then like if you notice that like, all right, my team is doing pretty good, I need more damage now at this point, or I can squeeze in more damage. You metamorph her, and then next thing you know, she's applying HP burns, and next thing you know, you have activations with someone like Artek, who is free to play for you guys. Like there's a lot of combinations that these champions can be a plug and play into, and not only that, it can fulfill like an area where like instead of utilizing someone like, for example, and I'm just going to use this as a reference, not like the end all be all, but like you have Siegfried, who can do damage in his base form, but you may sometimes have that moment where like, all right, the battle's been going on for a little bit, the battle of attrition's starting to hit you. You had a couple of heal reductions on your team, so you weren't getting as much healing as you need to. Siegfried could just metamorph over, get his healing back on, and if somebody dies, rest him back up, and then metamorph back into doing damage. You know what I mean? It's like you could play that aspect of both sides of the coin, Or you could just straight up say, hey, he's not my damage dealer, he's my go-to healer. He is my replacement for Pytheon. Instead of being like, he's my Pytheon plus maybe a pseudo Husk or something like that for Hydra. I'm just using Hydra as an example since that's one of the more recent forms of content we've been getting a lot of like activity to. So, but that could be applicable everywhere though. You know what I mean? Like whether you're in PvP, whether you're in PvE, raids, like Hydra, or like dungeon content where the Battle of Attrition may be something worth like looking into. All those type of mechanics could be utilized depending on how you look at it, or one portion of them, and that's what makes mythical champions so unique and diverse, is that you can actually just do multiple different things if you wanted to, or just one particular thing, make this guy shine in this one area, and that's really, really cool to see. And I like that. I like this direction where like Plarium is giving players the opportunity to create options for themselves. Same thing with Sun Wukong. We've seen so many creators, including myself, talk about like the ways you can build up a Sun Wukong, and I ultimately was like, I think the speed and accuracy route's going to be the way to go. And other players are like, well, I've seen some value out of playing him in a hybrid build. And then you have someone who's like, no, this is my go-to nuker. And like having that diversity, there's no one right answer in a sense, because like certain scenarios where one may shine better than the other, and then another scenario that exact same option is just weak comparatively, right? And having that diversity to allow them to be able to plug and play into different areas, or to facilitate a role in a way that's unique, despite being somewhat of an unorthodox option, makes them really, really cool. And I think the same is also true for like these mythical champions. They're going to be able to provide you a lot of options. Now, they did talk about how you can farm and you can acquire these fragments as well as the shards themselves, these primal shards. I am hoping that the way they do it is tasteful. You can kind of tell whenever like there's something that's kind of like an obvious cash grab, and I feel like a lot of players are very, very I won't say withdrawn, but it's distasteful for them in a sense where like players don't want to have like, yo, spend your money in your face. You don't want that. I want this to feel like a game that I can enjoy, and I enjoy it so much that I want to support it. And that's the direction that like I would caution someone that if you're watching, definitely be considerate of like how the perception of what your intent is, and really drive home the ideology about the intent. And I think one of the things he said is like, the whole core of this is that like these mythical champions will shaken up the terrain of Taleria, or basically in the summary words, Reach Out of Legends. So I'm down for it. We're down for it, but like let's make sure it's tasteful. I don't want to be bombarded with options of like, you spend money here, buy Prism Fragment here, buy this and that. And it's going to happen. I think we all need to prepare ourselves for it because it's a business at the end of the day. But at the same time, too, let's be considerate. Maybe is an option, I would say. And the only way I could quantify that is like have a healthy balance. I think one way that you could do is like, yeah, Prism Crystals did cost money to embellish on if you want to drive like a lot of summons into it, but they also gave you the option to farm up at least enough for at least one guaranteed summon for yourself, and that was really cool. I think even on top of that, and this is where kudos, like we could talk negatively about a game company all day long, but give the roses where they're due. Like Plarium, when Prism Crystals first came out, they gave like a free summon for almost everybody, right? So I got a chance to free summon. I didn't get a Lego, unfortunately. Plarium, please. But then during the course of like the events that were going on within that first Prism Crystal event, I was able to farm enough shards or fragments or crystals to be able to do one more extra summon. So I got 2 free summons basically out of that whole entire window. Mind you, it's RNG at the end of the day. You're playing the chance for your ability to get one Lego or whatever was in the pool, but being able to basically take my resources in a way and it's like, I'm going to farm so I can have enough crystals to summon was nice. You know what I mean? I do appreciate that. And I think that's a healthy aspect of health. Maybe not too over embellished so that you're not spoiling us, but at the very least, consider enough to a point where, like, you know what, at the very least, you get at least one chance, you know, if you wanted to at least dip your toes into, so we can get, like, a taste of what it's like. And who knows, maybe that could be the thing that game changes a person who's like, man, I'm on my way out of this game. This game ain't doing it for me. I've been unlucky, and I'm not getting what I want. And then they rip open that last ditch hope for, like, a legendary, and they get the thing that makes them sink in. I myself, for example, was, you know, playing, and I was on the cusp of not enjoying the game because I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And then I ended up pulling one of the best champions in the game, which was Brogni at the time. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to do some research. Let's do some groundwork. And then I started getting into the core components of what raid is, and I started learning about it. And the next thing you know, boom, I'm an addict. You know, like, I love it. It's fun to play, and it's enjoyable, and I love this the whole diversity thing, and like being able to try different champions to do a particular like boss or you know, not one all size fits all. Like, I love that thing about this game, is that like you could just do so many different things to achieve a similar comparable goal. And I think that's really like the core of what makes this game so fun, you know. And then like no individual player's experience is going to be the same, you know. I got my hands early on a Brogni, and then I ended up farming during a fusion to get Helicath, whereas another person, you know, wasn't playing during that period, but when they came into the game, they had the guaranteed summon to get Alsgore, and they ended up getting Alsgore, and that was their answer to being able to get unkillable, you know, for clan boss, for example. And at the end of the day, we both were able to do Ultra Nightmare now, right? And I thought that was a fun experience to be able to share with other players, or to give my take on it. And I think that like having a healthy balance of like, yeah, we understand you got to make your money, but you're also like, you know what, we are appreciative of you guys as players. And I think that's the message I carry. Anyways, with that being said, are you guys concerned about power creep? Another thing about mythical champions is that like if it is acquirable via means of like paying for crystals or for the primal shards, basically the Krakens of the community, the ones who are very spendy, the ones who have gotten all the top end stuff, are going to be able to increase the already, you know, existing chasm of like, you know, just because they got all the good stuff now, it's like impossible for like a free-to-play player to be able to, you know, clash back and be able to be a contender against them. And the harsh reality of it is, I think that if they do enable shards in the shop for like these primal shards, then yeah, I think that chasm could potentially grow even more, especially depending on the champion, right? If you have meta-defying champions that are on the same caliber as someone like George, as I used an example before, then 100% you're gonna see that chasm grow, and that's something that I don't know if I have a direct answer to. And the only thing I can think about is like making the odds a little bit more favorable for all players, in a sense, or maybe just removing the aspect of players, you know, buying it. And I feel like that would affect their money too much, so probably not. But, you know, don't make it a purchasable item. Maybe make it a thing that everybody has to farm for, and everybody gets the same amount of chances. Now, whether or not you get it is going to be the thing that defines you, and that will make you stand out as a player. But I think that you can't make everybody happy, because you know what? At the end of the day, you know, you worked hard for your money to get the shards to get that champion you're looking for. So, like, you know, who are we to tell you what to do? You know what I mean? Like, I understand both sides on that. It's very difficult. It's a very precarious situation that players in. However, finding a balance where, or in a sense, creating champions that are diverse enough to a point where they can be a response to something that's meta-defying, like the Ukrainian duo, for example, you know, Marishka and Taras. I feel like Sun Wukong was a healthy direction. Even for my account, I went from not being able to contend against a lot of different compositions in Arena to a point where now I'm just like, all right, I could actually take these fights on now, and I'm actually winning them. And it's like, it made me, in a summary of words, enjoy Arena a lot more, believe it or not. And I was one of the first proponents, like, I don't care for Arena. I'm all about the PvE content, and I neglected PvP much to my regret. You know, in terms of like Great Halls and all that stuff. But being able to enjoy a piece of content that I wasn't able to before was like very, very eye-opening for me. And I feel like, you know, with the right components in this game, and the more diverse and the more accessible you make champions or answers to meta, for example, the better this game is off. You know, being able to combat each other, where now strategy actually is at the core of this game. Its essence is the thing that makes or defines players from a competitive standpoint, or just making it more enjoyable for, like, you know what, I made this one team and it works, it does great, but what if I threw this thing in there, or if I threw this thing in there, and it's like you got a whole new experience. And I think that's really, really cool, right? Anyways, I'm on the tangent. I feel like player creep is definitely, power creep is definitely a thing that could be a a concern. I think that we should look at these type of opportunities as ways for us to not only close the gap, but to establish maybe a new definition of what the meta is. You know, we always all could tinker and find our own value within these champions, and that may be unique amongst everybody else. And I think that's the fun in finding new ways to play this game, and I think that's what I hope Plarium is bringing to the table with these new mythical champions. With that being said, let me know how you feel about mythical champions. Like, comment, and subscribe down in the comments below. Let us know what you think, and as always, guys, always remember, stay ascended.
Got the so it's gonna start.